Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and we're in Versailles, Kentucky right now, going to the Bluegrass Railroad Museum. And we were here for actually several hours. There's a little museum, a little kind of depot, some trains on display, and you take a train ride. I've done several train rides around Kentucky lately. In fact, I think I've done just about all of them at this point. Yeah, we just thought we'd stick our head in here real quick. I'll show you around the little museum, and then we'll start our train ride. I'll probably shut up a few minutes into this so you can hear what the conductor says. Really fun to listen to conductor from Australia, and he had a great accent. He was just fun to listen to, and he gave a lot of good information. So once the train ride starts, I'll probably be quiet. It wasn't a very loud or noisy train ride, so it might be interesting just to listen to it as we're doing it. Of course, there were a couple of toy trains going through the museum, and they actually had, yeah, this was on a whole separate car. Right at the museum where you get your ticket, there's a kind of a small room with several glass kind of display cases of old railroad-related relics. I love seeing the old ticket-related items. I love reading about how the mail was handled on the trains. You know, trains are great. Just a lot of fun. Yeah, and we're just kind of walking through the museum right now. A couple of miniature displays. This was a really nice train ride. Unlike some of the other ones, they don't serve dinner or drinks or anything like that. It's just a straight up train ride. And we had first class tickets. We had nice comfortable seats. It was a nice smooth ride. I heard, I think, is it Coach? One of the other sections, I heard it was a little rougher of a ride in that section. They also have a Hobo Car, which is an open air car. And this, yeah, this was October 2021. It was a fairly cold day, and yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to do the open air car on this particular day. I might think about that next year during the summertime. That might be a lot of fun. But yeah, they had some cool displays, by the way, Civil War related. I love Civil War stuff. There's a yeah, there was a display on Lincoln and his funeral train. I love anything Lincoln related. And as we during the train ride, you get to a point where they let you off and you look out at a bridge, and there's a really cool Bennett Young connection, Confederate Bennett Young. And if I haven't done so already, I'm going to put some videos up about him and the St. Albans raid in St. Albans, Vermont. Just a really fascinating Civil War character if you're reading up on the Civil War. So yeah, anyway, it was a lot of fun going through here. We enjoyed it. And I filmed the entire train ride one way, but not the going back, because you're seeing pretty much the same stuff, and the conductor was not narrating on the way back.
Hey guys.
Oh, did they get their pumpkins? You gotta go back and get our tickets.
Oh, you gotta wait. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you.
Do we see
Please go ahead and do so here while we're at the station. We're about 20 minutes away from departure, so you've still got plenty of time. Please remain seated throughout the duration of the journey. We don't want anybody to be thrown off their feet if the engineer needs to stop suddenly for any reason. And for those in the coach, open air cars, if you're by a window that's open, please make sure you keep your arms, hands, feet, leg, everything inside the car at all times. The windows are a little old and heavy and sometimes just slam shut just from the movement of the train, so you don't want any of your body parts to be stuck underneath the window when that happens. So with that, we'll be on our way, heading to the Kentucky River and then the pumpkin patch on the way back. Railroad Museum. Certainly glad you decided to spend your afternoon with us on our pumpkin patch run. So as we head through the yard here, you'll notice we've got some rolling equipment, all sorts of different pieces of equipment we have here. In terms of the locomotives, we have a GP9, which is painted in the Norfolk and Western black, which is pulling the train today. We also have a GP8 off to the left-hand side of the train, painted in the orange and white of the Illinois Central. On the display track, we have an Alco that was built during the Korean War and was used at the Bluegrass Army Depot. And we also have a 45-ton switcher. In terms of the coaches, immediately behind the locomotive we have our open-air car. This was originally used during the Second World War for transporting Sherman tanks. And then behind the open-air car we have our two air-conditioned cars. These were built in the late 1930s and 50s and were used by Amtrak. And then behind the first-class cars we have the two coach cars. These were built in the 1930s and have modern rolling bearing wheels. Were actually used in the commuter service in the New York City area.
Pre-building it there, and then I'll lay it in.
You also may have noticed we passed under a single bridge. This came from the Rosemont Gardens in Lexington. The lights on the display are actually only for display purposes only. So shortly you'll hear the engineer blow the whistle. You'll hear two long blasts, a short blast and a long blast. And I'll tell you more about that in just a moment.
Yeah, and again, what a great accent and what a perfect voice for narrating on the train ride. I love that guy. I just want to mention a couple things. This is October. They're going to let us go to a pumpkin patch and you could buy some pumpkins. I'll include that in the video here in just a moment. Also, I loved hearing about the trains and the fact that a couple of the cars used, what great history. And to think a couple of those cars were, you know, once used in New York City. Now they're doing kind of slow, mellow rides through the Kentucky countryside. I think that's really neat. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna let you enjoy just looking out the window with me as we drive around, or as we ride around. And some of the scenery was a bit close, so feel free to fast forward. But I kept the camera going the whole time. So.
You okay? That's what we drove to this house, the train. We drove to Thomas. We did. We drove to Thomas and he got out the place and
No, we're on the other way. You better hop on.
So there you go. So that was two long blasts, a short blast and a long blast. So no matter where you are, that is always the indication that a train is coming up to a level or grade crossing. And for those of you who know your Morse code, you might also recognize that two long, one short, one long as being the letter Q. And one of the stories goes that way back in the days of steamships, whenever the royal yacht was coming into harbour, that's the signal that they would blast to announce to other vessels in the area to stand clear and allow the Queen to come through to the harbour. So the railroads adopted the signal to have a similar sort of message. So stand clear, the train is coming through. So a little bit more about us. The Bluegrass Railroad Museum was established in 1976 and we've been at this location since 1988. Everybody you see on board crewing the train today, we're all volunteers. We do this for the love of railroading and because we get to share that love with great people like yourselves. So again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Up in front in the locomotive, our engineer today is Mike, and he's being assisted by fireman John. In the open air car, we have Steve as our car host. In the main part of the train, we have our hosts, Thomas and Joan. And my name's Matt. I'm the lead conductor for today's run. Some of you have probably worked out that I'm not local. You'd be right. I'm from the really, really, really deep south, also known as Australia. So you got the conductor from down under today. The tracks that we are riding on were built between 1880 and 1889 by the Louisville Southern Railroad, and of course they all go down to the Kentucky River, where we'll be getting off at the first half of this journey. The steel rails are about 130 years old. The ties, which are the wooden structures beneath the rails, or what we call sleepers in Australia, have a lifespan of about 25 years. There are 2,220 ties per mile of track. So you're looking at $40 per tie to replace. You're looking at about $2,200 to replace a mile of ties.
This is smooth ride in the older cars. I'm sure. It's more like nice scenery to the cars. What we can do is and you're lost without it. Is this your first time having it?
We don't have any tunnels on our track, but we do have cuts. And you'll notice that particularly as we get closer to the Kentucky River, so you'll see steep rock walls on either side of the train. So when this track was being laid back in the 1880s, there were no modern ways to cut through that rock. So workers used to have to use sledgehammers and star drills to pound holes in the rocks. Those holes were then filled with black powder and detonated. So the large rocks were then taken away in horse-drawn wagons, while the smaller rocks were used to fill in the low spots. Coming up on our right hand side is Trackside Farm. This is a 600-acre thoroughbred horse farm. You may see some horses in the fields out there. I'm still in the habit of looking for kangaroos, haven't seen any yet, but I can definitely see some horses out there today. So here the horses are raised and kept with their mothers for the first 6 months of their lives. Then once they are weaned, they start to begin the life of a racehorse. You'll notice in the field some of the enclosures have double fencing. This is to keep the stallions apart. Stallions can get a little competitive, might bite each other on the neck and things like that, so they like to keep those guys separated. You also may see, if you look really closely, some small cement structures in the field. So those are actually water fountains for the horses, so they can get something to drink while they're out in the fields. And a little further up the track here, also on the right, you'll notice a large round barn. This barn has no internal support, but has a soft dirt floor, so the horses can be exercised even in bad weather.
He says that something water. They're not making a selection of pops.
Used to be it's like a pops on the castle and then other side you go out if there's a short.
And who knows why you never ask a horse for advice? Because they're all naysayers.
You were the one. Well, it's not the castle, but if you're staying on that, you got to go to your left. The castle's on your left, and on your right, you go down. Like in the cooking home.
It is.
Vince Neal was injured after falling off stage.
We're starting to approach the small township of Milner, so I'll talk about Milner here in a moment, but before we get there, you'll notice there's some piece of the museum's rolling stock on the left-hand side. So the first thing we'll come across is a tanker car. So this was actually built in the style of a milk car, but it was actually used to haul water and oil for maintenance away. So the car itself is in excellent structural shape, and the tanks behind her skin are actually still intact. Then next to the tank car we have a baggage car, and then after the baggage car we have a steam crane which came from Kentucky Utilities. And then after the steam train we have a very unique piece. This would be a dynamometer car. So dynamometers used to be hooked up behind steam locomotives to measure their power and performance. So certainly a unique piece of equipment for the museum to have. So like I said, now we're coming into Milner. That's M-I-L-N-E-R, Milner, Kentucky. So back in time, there actually used to be a railway station between the road and the tracks. So here in the 1890s, passengers could board the train for trips to Louisville, Lexington, and all points beyond. Because of course in the 1890s there were no cars or trucks or interstates, so the train was the best way to get around. And it wasn't just passengers on the train, so mail used to be sorted on the train as well, and then dropped off at the station so they could be delivered to its correct destination. In addition, there also used to be a hemp mill here. So hemp used to be grown in the field, and the mill would harvest it for its fibres. Those fibres were then turned into high quality rope, which was used extensively during the First World War. These days, of course, both the hemp mill and the railroad station are long gone, and Milne is just a nice, quiet residential community. And then off to our right hand side is the Life Adventure Centre. This is a 575 acre non-profit organisation and recreational farm. Here they teach equestrian skills to help give direction to disadvantaged children. The Life Adventure Centre also has climbing walls, zip lines. They do canoeing and camping trips, and good team building exercises for companies and churches. They even have overnight accommodation available. They're also known for being a recovery retreat for the military, with no charge for the children of military families. And perhaps more notable for us today, it is also where we are going to be stopping for our pumpkin patch. So as we head past here on the right hand side, you'll see the pumpkin patch. That's where we'll be stopping on the way back.
She said she just felt
You want to watch it?
Then 2 days though. So we can see all the scenery during the day. Got a hotel in
Off to our right hand side is Right of Way Farm. This is just another one of the horse farms that we passed by on our journey today. A local identity from back in history was a gentleman by the name of Captain Jack Jewett. He was known as the Paul Revere of the South. On June 3rd and 4th in 1781, Captain Jewett rode 40 miles on the back roads of Virginia to warn the legislators and Governor Thomas Jefferson of the approach of 250 British troops. And as you know, of course, Jefferson went on to become the 3rd President of the United States. After the war, Captain Jewett settled here in Woodford County, as Kentucky was part of Virginia at the time. His home is about 5 miles from here and is open to the public. So we're about to approach the largest bridge, the tallest bridge rather, that we have on our track. So as we pass over, if you look down, you're about 18 feet off the ground. This also starts a fairly steep descent of the track down towards the river, so you notice we'll slow quite a bit, keep ourselves at a safe, manageable speed as we head down towards the river.
Yeah, we already went over it. Yeah.
Another identity from a little more recent times is John Connolly. He's an American country music singer who was born here in Woodford County in Kentucky in 1946. He was raised on a tobacco farm not far from our location, but moved to Nashville in 1971 in pursuit of a musical career. He charted for the first time in 1978 with a song called Rose-Colored Glasses, which was a number 5 hit on the Hot Country Songs chart. So here you can see some examples of the cuts that we were talking about a little earlier. So once we stop and get to the Kentucky River, and if you were, for those that want to get out and take a look at the view, one of the first things you'll see is the young high trestle, which was a marvel of its time when it was built in 1889. The trestle itself is named after Colonel Bennett Henderson Young, a Confederate soldier who was involved in several Civil War raids. After the war, he developed this line and went on to become the president of the Louisville Southern Railroad. The trestle itself is 1,659 feet long, stands 283 feet above the low water mark of the Kentucky River, and has a 551-foot cantilever span. Believe it or not, the trestle has never been strengthened or modified. So the bridge you see today remains exactly as it was when it was built in 1889. The last passenger train crossed the bridge on December 27th in 1937. However, freight trains continued to use it for much longer. However, over the years, the crews of those freight trains, some of them got a little wary of the bridge, and so they would stop the train on one side of the bridge, hop into a high rail vehicle, which is the vehicle that travels on both road and rail. They'd put that on the track in front of the locomotive, put the locomotive in low speed, they travel along in front of it in the high rail vehicle. Once they got to the other side of the bridge, take their high rail vehicle off the rail again, hop into the locomotive, and away they go. But even the locomotive stopped running in November of 1985. These days, the trestle is actually owned by a bungee jumping company, so they're out here about every month or so. They're actually not jumping today, so won't see any activity today. But for anybody that's had a burning desire to put rubber bands around their ankles and plunge off a bridge, this is the place to do it. Across the other side of the river, you'll notice some buildings. That's a Wild Turkey Distillery. They were established in 1869, moved to this location in 1905, and started distilling here again after Prohibition. One of the distillery executives, Thomas McCarthy, took some warehouse samples with him on a wild turkey hunt with some friends in 1940. So Thomas McCarthy took some warehouse samples with him on that wild turkey hunt. His friends who went with him enjoyed the brew so much that they asked Thomas to bring some more of that wild turkey whiskey with him next year, and thus a new brand was born. There were approximately 27 storage warehouses that hold some 3/4 of a million barrels of bourbon.
into the lake.
And then on the right hand side, to the right hand of the bridge, you'll notice there's an S-shaped auto bridge. So on the other side of the river, it turns to the north, and on this side of the river, it turns to the south. It's actually one of the very few S-shaped auto bridges in our nation. So again, we'll be coming to a stop here shortly. Please remain seated until we come to a complete stop. You'll know that we've come to a complete stop when you hear the engineer blow his horn. For those in open air, you'll be disembarking between open air and first class, and your car host Steve will direct you there. For those of you in first class, please move ahead forward towards the locomotive end of the train. You'll disembark there on the right. Again, look for a crew member, they'll help you there. And similarly, for those in coach, you'll be moving ahead towards the locomotive end of the train, and you'll see a spot there on the right hand side of the train for you to disembark. We'll be here for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get back onto the train and head back to the pumpkin patch.
Very
Look over the river and take our back up to the so we get it to the
As you can tell, we are about to get off the train, and I just wanted to go ahead and mention, I mean, it took us a couple minutes to get off the train. You know, everybody had to get out and kind of snake line through there. But it's a train ride. Everybody was casual and nice about it, so everything went nice and smooth. Yeah, and here's the trestle. I wanted to real quick read from a historic marker right here. Young's High Bridge over the Kentucky River, built 1889. Young's High Bridge at Tyrone, Kentucky, was built in 1889 by the Louisville Southern Railroad, the same year as the Eiffel Tower was built in Paris, France. It spans 1,659 feet across and is 285 feet above the Kentucky River. The bridge includes a 515-foot-long cantilever single-track span. Cantilever bridges have no center piers and are supported by pier-mounted arms extending out from each shore. The bridge was named after Bennett H. Young, who was president of the Louisville Southern Railroad when the bridge was being built. Bennett Young was better known as a daring Confederate cavalry lieutenant who led a raid on St. Albans, Vermont in 1864, making off with $200,000 and escaping across the Canadian border. Yeah, so anyway, a little more information about the bridge, but I wanted to mention that really quick because we've been to St. Albans recently, and I'm just fascinated with Bennett Young and the St. Albans raid. And up to the right there, we just passed the open-air car, which I just thought was pretty cool, too. I wanted to point those things out really, really quick.
Seated, and keep all arms, hands, legs inside the train at all times. And once we get to the pumpkin patch again, wait for the engineer to blow the horn to let us know that we've come to a complete stop, and then we can disembark. So this time, once we get to the pumpkin patch, we're going to be disembarking from the middle of the train. So for those in coach, you already know where to disembark from, because this is where you've disembarked from just now. For those in first class and open air, you'll be walking towards the back of the train, and you'll be disembarking. It'll be off to the same side again, but roughly in the middle of the train. You'll see crew members there. So again, coach coach and first class, everybody head towards the middle section of the train. Also, you probably noticed that the locomotive is now at the back of the train. So I am going to what was the back of the train is now front of the train. So I'm now going to be the eyes and the ears for the engineer. So no commentary on the way back. So on the pumpkin patch. So just sit back, relax, enjoy each other's company, the music, and we'll get you to the pumpkin patch here just shortly.
Yeah, and just quickly, here we are at the pumpkin patch. Again, the conductor talked a little bit about the organization that hosts this earlier, and this was just nice. This was about a 15-20 minute stop. They had a little pumpkin patch area. You could get a small pumpkin for $3, a large pumpkin for $5, and they were giving out free cider. Like, you could just go get a little glass of cider. It wasn't that little either. It was kind of generous, and I was thrilled to have some cider. I just thought that was a nice gesture. So yeah, anyway, I wanted to mention that as you're looking around. This was kind of an added bonus on our train ride.
We already have pumpkins,
Yes.
We did. Me and the volunteer lady were talking.
I don't know how to hear all that. You can drink that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, there's no bitterness at all.
Hope you all enjoyed that. So we'll be heading back to the museum now. Get you back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. So again, please remain seated. Once you get back to the station, wait till you hear the engine blow the whistle. Let us know we'll come to a complete stop, and then we'll be good to go. We'll get you back here in a moment.
And then it hits the igniter, so instead of just shooting flames down the whole pipe, it goes boom, and it lights the little pipe. If it doesn't blow itself out, then the second time. Otherwise, it's done it twice to me now, so I'm going to use the other to fix it. The second time they did it.
And then chapter is the one that we it's not clear. Sometimes we don't have to go to the system and they decorate this part of the we did that.
Even then, it's too long.
But Thomas's train was the thing to do. And it was realistic to get going because, yeah, just like this one, you can go fast and just go back and you got kind of
They have a
big course.
Yeah, and we're back to the museum after a great and fun train ride. And yeah, like I said, they've got some other trains to look at. This was just nice. I can't remember if the conductor mentioned it or not, but they're all volunteers. So God bless them. I tip my hat to them for sure. The gift shop was nice. I wish they would have had more branded merchandise in the gift shop. I did buy a patch. I think they might have had t-shirts. I don't think they had any unique stickers or postcards or any of that. They did have all sorts of toy trains and whistles and that kind of thing. It was well stocked, but I would have liked to have seen more stuff with their name on it. But we had a great time. You should check this out. I know they have a Civil War train. They have special events that they do, and this was actually their October pumpkin patch when we did, and we had a great time. So yeah, check that out. Check out the Bluegrass Railroad Museum.